Hey, LAN Party Gamers. It's come to my attention that our old Dell Optiplex systems here have kind of been showing their age. You know, they are Extreme Edition quad cores. We've done a lot of upgrades to these, thanks to the community for helping us upgrade them and stuff. So we don't want to get rid of them entirely. However, thanks to some posts and some comments on our videos, they definitely are looking their age, and nobody really wants to game on a 4x3 1024 monitor or 1280 by 1024 monitor. So what we're going to be doing is Silverstone just came out with a new professional line system, mid-tower chassis, and we just got our hands on it basically right after they came out. We've been looking for something to transfer the guts of these Dells into, and now thanks to the PS16 by Silverstone, it can fit every part of what's in here that we can keep. With some exceptions, we're not keeping certain things, we're keeping certain things, and the goal of this today is to see how much we can salvage from the Dells and put into these new Silverstone chassis. So a huge shout out to Silverstone for sending us these new cases over here. And if you're looking for something that maybe you're looking to minimize your build, or maybe you're looking for something that you want to be able to move your existing tower into, maybe you're looking for something for business or something that's more professional looking, well, these are great. We can salvage a lot of parts out of them, and we're gonna have to get a little creative because some of the Dell parts don't use standard mounting, they don't use standard pinouts, so we're gonna see how we can modify some of the Dell parts in here to fit in a standard MATX chassis. So huge shout out to Silverstone, and a big thank you from all of us here for sending us 6 of these new mid-tower cases that you just came out with. We'll have a link in the description below where you can learn more about these cases here. So let's see how much of this we can salvage and see what the upgrades are. And the main point of this is the Dell chassis can only fit single slot video cards. So right now we're running 740 superclocked 2 gig EVGA cards. We're going to be putting the 780s from the Ryzen systems in these mid-tower chassis, along with new EVGA power supplies, and we're replacing all the 780s in these with 1060s, giving them a bit of a boost in performance and power efficiency, which should help everybody out. Before we get started tearing down the Dells, we're actually going to get some baselines on the FPSs. So the guys are logging into Steam, and we're going to get CSGO, PUBG, and 3D Mark numbers from both the original Dells with the original 740s, the same parts in the new cases, as well as the Ryzens with the 780s, and the Ryzens with the 1060s, and then finally the new mid-tower cases with the 780s in them from the old Ryzens. Those computers right here are the new mid-tower cases, and these are Silverstone Precision PS16s. Big thanks to Silverstone for that, and EVGA for providing 650B3 power supplies. Blocky pieces of metal. They worked okay for Q6600s and stuff. But when we went to the Extreme Edition quad-core processors, we got these. These are nearly a third higher, and they have heat pipes running through them. And we don't really want to get rid of them, right? So what we did was we 3D printed mounts that are going to replace this shroud. This shroud is actually what screws into the Dell. These 3D printed ABS mounts are what are going to be replacing it when we install into the new MATX motherboards. So modeled and printed these here at ACL HQ. I'm very proud of them. So this is going to be how we're going to utilize, again, as much as we can from the Dells in the new builds. So that's going to be one of our steps today, is pulling out as much as we can, including the fans. The fans we're going to repin. We're going to take the pin outs from the fan itself, so it'll fit on a CPU header on the MATX motherboard, and we'll show you that as well. So with the benchmarks all completed, we can go ahead and start taking apart the Dells, and I'm going to show you the stuff that we're going to be keeping within this case. So we're not going to be worried about the power supply, the case, or the motherboard, because the motherboard is BTX instead of ATX. So the things we're going to be keeping are the CPU cooler, the CMOS battery, the DVD drives, the hard drives, and the CPU, the Q9650 Extreme quad-core CPU, and we're even going to be overclocking it using our custom-made CPU cooler adapter. All right, we got all the parts out of the Dells, and now it's time to put them in the mid-tower cases. In an effort to save as many different parts of the Dell as possible, we're going to use this Dell OEM fan because, well, it's big and it definitely cools a lot. It's got a high RPM, but the odd thing about it is it doesn't use a standard pinout. This is the Dell plug for the Dell motherboard, and it's definitely different than the one on a standard MATX motherboard, and as such the pinout is also different. So thanks to the Dell community forums, and especially somebody named SpeedStep, so shout out to SpeedStep for providing this awesome Dell to OEM standard 4-pin PWM switch here, and you go from this to this, and you can plug your Dell fan into a normal MATX fan header. So big thanks to the Dell community for this post, and especially to SpeedStep. So this is the CPU cooler, obviously from the Dells that we upgraded back when we did our original upgrade that I'm talking about. These, obviously, are the CPU cooler hold downs that I made, and basically it only has 2 screws from the Dell side of things. So we had to adapt this piece and 3D print it that will screw straight through the motherboard with a nut and a washer. The first step in taking this case and making it our new mid-towers is we're taking this rear exhaust 120mm fan that comes with it, and we're going to take it out and put it in the front as an intake fan, as we put our Dell fan back here to be our CPU fan. So Silverstone's found a way to take an older style case and put newer features in it, like cable management holes, and you don't have to take off the entire front panel in order to swap out the front fan or even add a filter to the unit. You simply press this tab in, and this entire front section comes off, allowing you to screw in holes for a new front fan, add a hard drive maybe, or even clean out this mesh here that they have on the inside of the case. Very nice addition to this mid-tower case. Alright, so here's the finished look. We've got the Dell fan here. We've got the Dell heatsink here, and the 650B3 fans actually sucking hot air up through here, out through here as well. And intake, of course, is the fan that we just moved from the rear. We've got the 780, and you can see there's a lot of room here for video cards on this mid-tower chassis. We've got the 2 original hard drives from the Dells in RAID striped 0. We've got our new ADATA 240 gig SSD here for our boot drive. We've got the original Dell DVD drive here. And we even saved the CMOS battery that we talked about before, as well as the RAM and the CPU from the Dell. And we've got our 3D printed mounting brackets here for the CPU. And it seems to be working out just fine as far as heat management goes. You can hear the fan ramp up and down with the temperature, and our overclock is holding steady. Okay, one last step to say that this project is done is to put our good friend EVGA badge right there in the center. I might have to measure that. Well, guys, that concludes this project here. We're still waiting on the Wi-Fi cards for the mid-towers, as well as a few more of these 1080p Acer panels. But that pretty much is it. And I just have to say a huge thanks to EVGA for providing us power supplies, not only for these mid-tower cases, but for the Ryzens as well. We really couldn't have afforded to do much of this without you guys. So always, we really appreciate you guys being there, not only for the power supplies, but for the great service and support that you've given us on warranty and repair services throughout the years. Being a local company, we'll always love coming back to EVGA. Now, for talking about performance changes, there are certain things that we can do with these systems now, including an overclock. We put in 10% overclock on these systems because the motherboards allow it, which the Dells wouldn't. We also obviously have an SSD in here with the rated 500 gig hard drives for storage, and the extra fan for cooling. That allows us to do a couple of things. So without an overclock, and if we just had the graphics card update, let's say in a Dell chassis, we would have had a 3D Mark score of 2423, and with the 10% overclock, we've got a 2551. So over 100 difference on TimeSpy. And in PUBG, we went from around between 40 and 80 FPS with some choppiness to a much smoother gameplay between 45 and 85, leaning closer to 85 typically with the 10% overclock. So just a little bit of an overclock makes a big difference in the smoothness of gameplay. Something where we were only getting 15 or so FPS when these were in the Dell chassis with the 740s. Obviously very heavily bottlenecked in those chassis where we could only fit single slot video cards. Going from the Ryzens, they were getting about 60 FPS in PUBG with the 780s, which are now in these rigs. They're getting between 80 and 120 on average, so quite a bit of difference. They were definitely GPU bottleneck there, with the 3D Mark's TimeSpy score now of 3864. So they're about 1,000 3D Mark TimeSpy score above the mid towers here, and the mid towers went from triple digits to 2500. So definitely a big upgrade. Nobody's going to be having any issues gaming in the garage now. We have 17 dedicated seats. We've got 6 on this wall, 5 on this wall, 6 in the middle. We've got the games on the wall here on the projector, as well as the Smash Brothers area and the Super Nintendo kiosk here behind me. So if you're in the area, there's no reason not to stop by. Don't have to bring anything. Just come on in and make sure to visit our website, sandiegolan.net. Or check us out at San Diego LAN, one word, on social media to see our next upcoming events. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.